The wine tasted bitter. Sera's hand trembled as the crystal goblet slipped from her fingers, shattering across the marble floor. The grand hall blurred, hundreds of nobles in silk and jewels, the Alpha King rising from his throne, his golden eyes wide with something she'd never seen there before, fear. Sera. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. The room tilted. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground, and the last thing she heard was Kale's roar shaking the very foundations of the castle. 12 hours earlier, you'll serve the wine at tonight's banquet. Head servant Margot thrust the silver tray into Sera's hands without looking at her. The Alpha King specifically requested you. Sera's stomach dropped. In 3 years working in the castle kitchens, she perfected the art of invisibility. Omegas who drew attention rarely survive court politics intact. Why me? How should I know what interests royalty? Margot's lip curled. Perhaps he enjoys watching you stumble around like a frightened rabbit. Now go. You have 2 hours to make yourself presentable. The other servants snickered as Sera fled to the washroom. Her reflection in the tarnished mirror showed exactly what she was, too thin, dressed in a shapeless gray uniform, with dark circles under her eyes from working double shifts. What could the Alpha King possibly want with her? She thought back to last week, when she'd accidentally walked in on him in the library. She'd been retrieving books that nobles had carelessly left scattered about. He'd been standing by the window, and for just a moment, she'd seen past the crown and the power to the man beneath. Someone who looked as lonely as she felt. Their eyes had met. Neither had spoken. She'd gathered the books with shaking hands and left, certain she'd be dismissed by morning. Instead, he'd requested her for the banquet. The grand hall gleamed with 1,000 candles. Sera moved through the crowd with her tray, keeping her eyes downcast as nobles grabbed goblets without acknowledging her existence. The weight of the Alpha King's gaze pressed against her skin like a physical touch. Don't look. Don't meet his eyes. Pour and move on. The little Omega plays servant. Lady Vivian's voice dripped poison as she selected a goblet. The noblewoman was beautiful and cruel in equal measure, her green dress cut to display her status as a high-ranking beta. How perfectly suited to your station. Sera bit her tongue and moved to the next guest. She thinks she's special. Vivian's companion, Lord Garrett, spoke loud enough to carry. Rumor says the king watches her. As if an Omega could ever be more than, that's enough. The Alpha King's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. The hall fell silent. Kale stood from his throne, his presence commanding absolute attention. He was devastating in his formal attire, black leather and silver clasps, dark hair pulled back to reveal the sharp angles of his face. Power radiated from him in ways that made every wolf in the room instinctively lower their eyes. Every wolf except Sera, who'd looked up in surprise. Their gazes locked. Something passed between them, a current, a recognition, a pull she didn't understand but felt in her bones. Lady Vivian. Kale's tone could freeze fire. Perhaps you'd like to explain why you believe station matters more than character. Vivian paled. Your Majesty, I only meant, I know exactly what you meant. He descended the dais steps slowly, deliberately. You meant that this young woman, who works harder than anyone in this room and asks for nothing in return, is somehow less worthy of respect than those of us born into power. He stopped in front of Sera. Up close, she could see the gold flecks in his amber eyes, could smell cedar and winter on his skin. Her wolf stirred for the first time in years, a small, frightened thing that had learned to stay hidden. Your name? He asked softly. Sera, Your Majesty. Her voice barely qualified as a whisper. Sera. He said it like a prayer. Would you do me the honor of sharing a toast? Every eye in the hall fixed on them. Sera's hands shook so badly the goblets on her tray rattled. I'm not worthy to. Let me be the judge of that. He took 2 goblets from her tray, handed her one, and raised his own. To those who serve with grace and dignity, regardless of what others think they deserve. He drank. The hall held its collective breath. Sera lifted her goblet, her heart hammering. The wine tasted strange, bitter beneath the sweet, but she swallowed out of sheer terror of refusing. Kale's eyes narrowed. That wine. The goblet slipped from her fingers before she could respond. The crash seemed distant, muffled. Her legs gave out, and as darkness claimed her, she felt his arms catch her, heard his voice raw with fury and fear. The last coherent thought she had was that she'd been right to stay invisible. Court was dangerous. And somehow, impossibly, the Alpha King cared whether she lived or died. Sera woke to silk sheets and the scent of medicinal herbs. Pain throbbed behind her eyes, but she was alive, which seemed miraculous given the poison she'd tasted in that wine. Don't move. The voice was rough with exhaustion. She turned her head carefully. Cale sat in a chair beside the bed, still in his formal attire though it was now disheveled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his jaw was tight with barely contained rage. How long? She whispered. 8 hours. The healer said another minute, and his hands clenched on the chair arms. The wine was meant for me. You took a goblet from the left side of your tray. I took one from the right. Someone poisoned only certain glasses, knowing the serving pattern. The implications settled over her like ice water. Someone had tried to assassinate the Alpha King, and she'd accidentally drunk the poison instead. Who? That's what I intend to find out. He leaned forward, and she saw the predator beneath the royal veneer. Every person who had access to that wine is currently in the dungeon awaiting questioning. But Sera, I need you to tell me everything. Did you see anyone tamper with the tray? She closed her eyes, forcing herself past the fear to remember. Head servant Margot gave me the tray. She said you'd requested me specifically, but… Her eyes snapped open. You didn't, did you? I've never made such a request. I don't even know the names of most palace servants, though I should. His expression softened slightly. I'd only seen you that once, in the library. You looked at me like I was just a man instead of a king. It was refreshing. Heat crept into her cheeks. I should be dead. Why did you drink first? I thought if I did, you might feel less afraid. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I nearly got you killed. Whoever planned this knew I'd make some gesture toward you after defending you publicly. They counted on it. Lady Vivian is being questioned as we speak, along with Lord Garrett and a dozen others. He stood, pacing to the window. Dawn light caught in his dark hair, turning it silver at the edges. But I don't think she's clever enough for this. The poison was wolfsbane mixed with nightshade, a combination that's almost impossible to detect and works quickly. Whoever did this has access to rare herbs and knows palace protocols intimately. Sera pushed herself up despite the dizziness. You mean to let me go? If someone's willing to kill to get to you, I'm a liability. I'm just an Omega who happened to be in the wrong place. Stop. He crossed back to her in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. You're not just anything, and you're not going anywhere until I know you're safe. Why do you care? The question burst out before she could stop it. I'm nobody. You're the Alpha King. I serve wine and scrub floors, and you rule an entire kingdom. Why does it matter if? Because it does. His hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the strength she could feel coiled in him. Because when I saw you fall, when I thought you were dying, something in me broke that I didn't know could break anymore. I've spent 10 years on that throne surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, favor, alliance. But you looked at me in that library like you understood what it was to be lonely. Like you saw me. Her breath caught. This was impossible. Alphas didn't bond with Omegas outside of political arrangements, and they certainly didn't speak to servants with such raw honesty. Your Majesty, Cale. His thumb traced her cheekbone. When we're alone, please. Just Cale. A sharp knock interrupted them. Cale stepped back, his expression sliding into cold authority. Enter. His beta, Commander Thorne, strode in looking grim. We have a confession. You'll want to hear this. They moved to a sitting room where Margot knelt between 2 guards, her face streaked with tears. The moment she saw Sera, something like relief crossed her features. You lived? Thank the gods, you lived. Cale's voice could have cut glass. Explain why I shouldn't execute you where you kneel. I didn't know. Margot's words tumbled out desperately. Lady Celeste gave me gold to make sure the Omegas served your table, to make sure you took a goblet from the right side of the tray. She said it was just a love potion, something to make you favor the girl. I didn't know it was poison. I swear on my life. Lady Celeste. Cale went utterly still. My cousin. Thorne nodded grimly. She's fled the castle. We found correspondence in her chambers, plans to take the throne, alliances with 3 border pacts who want you gone. She needed you dead to make her move. Sera's mind reeled. Celeste was next in line for the throne, beautiful and cunning and always pleasant in public. She'd helped plan tonight's banquet. She told me which goblets to poison? Sera asked quietly. Margot nodded miserably. The right side of the tray. She said you'd offer that side to the king first, as protocol dictates. But he took from the left instead. She looked at Kale. Why did you do that? Because I wanted Sera to feel comfortable drinking first. Kale's jaw clenched. I chose raw. You chose right. Sera met his eyes. You chose kindness when you could have chosen protocol. That's why you're worth serving. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, gratitude, something deeper that made her wolf raise its head with cautious hope. Find Celeste, Kale commanded. I want her in chains by nightfall. 3 days later, Sera stood in the throne room as the entire court assembled. She'd been given proper clothing, a simple but elegant blue dress that made her feel almost noble. Lady Celeste knelt in chains at the center of the hall, her beauty twisted by rage and defeat. Kale stood from his throne, every inch the Alpha King. Lady Celeste of House Ravencrest, you are charged with attempted regicide, conspiracy, and the endangerment of an innocent life. How do you plead? Guilty. Celeste's voice dripped venom. Guilty of trying to put someone competent on that throne. You're weak, cousin. You fraternize with Omegas. You show mercy to enemies. You waste time on sentiment when you should rule with strength. Strength? Kale descended the dais slowly. You think strength is betraying family? Poisoning innocent servants? Conspiring with border pacts who'd tear this kingdom apart for their own gain? I think strength is doing what must be done. Celeste lifted her chin. You care too much. That girl should mean nothing to you. Yet you've kept her in the royal wing for 3 days. You brought her to this trial. Everyone sees it. The mighty Alpha King brought low by an Omega nobody. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sera felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her. This was what she'd feared, becoming a spectacle, a weakness that enemies could exploit. You're right about one thing. Kale's voice rang clear. Sera means something to me. She matters. And that's not weakness. That's the point of all this. He gestured to the throne, the hall, the assembly. Power without purpose is just tyranny. I don't rule to dominate. I rule to protect. To ensure that every wolf in this kingdom, regardless of rank, has value. He turned to face the crowd directly. For too long, we've measured worth by birth and status. We've allowed Omegas to be treated as disposable, servants to be invisible, the powerless to be preyed upon. But strength isn't about who you can hurt. It's about who you choose to protect. He walked to Sera, offered his hand. She took it with trembling fingers, and he drew her forward to stand beside him. This woman saved my life by accident and nearly lost hers in the process. She's shown more courage in 3 days than most warriors show in a lifetime. And I'm making it known before all of you. She is under my personal protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. Sera's eyes stung. Your Majesty, there's more. He squeezed her hand gently. I can't make you royalty. I can't change your rank by decree. But I can offer you a choice. Stay in the palace as my personal ward. Learn statecraft, diplomacy, whatever interests you. Let me show you that you're worth more than scrubbing floors and being invisible. Or leave with enough gold to start anywhere, completely free. Your choice, Sera. Always your choice. She looked up at him. This powerful man who could command armies but asked instead of demanded. Who saw value where others saw nothing. I'd like to stay, she whispered. If you'll teach me. His smile could have lit the whole kingdom. It would be my honor. This is madness. Celeste shrieked. You'll destroy everything our family built for a. Take her to the southern border and exile her. Kale commanded without looking away from Sera. Let the pack she allied with decide what to do with a traitor. As guards dragged Celeste away, the hall erupted in whispers. But Sera barely heard them. Kale kept her hand in his as he addressed the court, announcing reforms, better treatment for Omegas, protections for servants, investigations into abuse of power throughout the kingdom. Later, in the library where they first met, Sera found him by the window again. You changed everything, she said softly. The whole kingdom will be different now. You changed everything. He turned to face her. I was going through motions, ruling because I had to. But you reminded me why it matters. You gave me purpose again. She stepped closer, brave for perhaps the first time in her life. What happens now? Now. His hand came up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Now you learn everything. Politics, history, combat if you want it. You become whoever you're meant to be. And I. He hesitated. I hope I get to know you. Really know you. If you'll let me. I'm still an Omega, she reminded him, though her heart soared. Court will talk. Let them talk. He smiled. I'm the Alpha King. I decide what matters. And you, Sera, matter more than anything has in a very long time. She reached up and took his face in her hands. This powerful man who'd chosen kindness over protocol, who'd seen her when she was invisible. Then teach me, she said. Teach me to be brave like you. You're already the bravest person I know. He leaned down until his forehead touched hers. You survived being invisible. Now let me help you shine. Outside, the kingdom would change slowly. Omegas would gain rights, servants would gain voices, and the lost would find protection. But it started here, in this quiet moment, with a king who learned that true strength meant protecting the vulnerable, and an Omega who learned she was worth protecting. The wine had tasted bitter, but what came after was sweeter than either of them could have imagined.